Hi, this is Brian Keller, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about the software testing capabilities of Visual Studio 2012. So in the introduction video, I talked about how we made available a tool for manual testers called Microsoft Test Manager, which is a member of the Visual Studio 2012 family and can help manual testers author their test cases, run those test cases, and file rich, actionable bugs back to developers. Now, one of the things that we did in 2010 was really focus on what's called formal test case management, where you start with requirements and you author test cases which validate that the requirements are implemented correctly. In the 2012 release, we've renewed that focus by adding a new capability called exploratory testing. Exploratory testing allows me to start testing my application without needing to start with test cases, and both approaches are very valuable in helping you to raise the quality of your overall software application. So let me drop into a quick demonstration that shows both approaches. Here I have Microsoft Test Manager 2012. Now to start with, over on the left-hand side, I have a list of requirements that I've pulled in from the Team Foundation server instance that the development team I'm testing will be using. And so here you can see a list of requirements that they're implementing in this particular iteration. Over on the right-hand side, you can see a list of test cases which I've written as a tester to validate that those particular requirements are implemented correctly. So for example, if I open up one of these test cases, you can see that it's just a work item that's stored within Team Foundation server. And then down towards the bottom, you can see a list of individual test steps, as well as what we call parameter values. Now the parameter values basically allow me to do things like parameterize the quantity. So I could write this test case 3 different times, once for various values of quantity, but this allows me to actually reuse the same test case multiple times, and then this just instructs the tester that they should be feeding in these different values for multiple successive iterations of that test case. Now if I move to the Test tab within Microsoft Test Manager, you'll see the list of test cases that the tester is being asked to run. And so for this particular test case, number 41, you'll notice that it shows up twice. The reason for that is that we're asking the tester to validate this functionality on both Windows 8 using IE10 and Windows 7 using IE9. And you can really define any test matrix you want. So you can test a variety of different database servers or even different versions of third-party libraries that your application depends on. You can really define your test matrix however you need to. So if I just run one of these test cases, I can click on Run, and this is going to launch what's called Microsoft Test Runner. Now when I start this test, it's going to show me a list of test steps that I need to run, just like we looked at in the previous screen. And one of the nice things about Microsoft Test Runner is that I can actually rerun this test by fast-forwarding through the same set of steps that I previously ran the last time I ran this particular test case. This is really nice, especially if you have a very long test case and the only thing you're doing is maybe validating the checkout functionality of an e-commerce website. If you know that the first 19 steps of your test case are going to be creating a new user, logging in as that user, adding an item to your shopping cart, then it's not necessary for you to go back and manually test each of those steps. You can just fast forward down to the relevant piece of the application that you'll be testing. And so here you can see that we fast forwarded through the first few steps, and the Microsoft Test Runner is telling me that I should confirm that this particular value is set to 1. So this is a really simple test case here. I'm going to validate that that particular value is set to 1. We'll pass that, and then we can go ahead and finish out the rest of this particular test case. Now, I didn't find any bugs, but if I did find a bug, it's easy for me to file that bug just by clicking on Create Bug. One of the really nice things about creating a bug with Microsoft Test Manager is that it already includes lots of rich information about exactly what you were doing. It even includes a video recording showing the screen capture of exactly what the tester was doing. So there's no more back and forth between the development team and the tester asking, are you sure you clicked on that particular button? They can just open up the video recording and see exactly what happened. You can also see things like system information. So here I can see what system I was running on, how much RAM was available, what version of Windows and Service Pack level, what build was I using. A lot of times testers file bugs and the developers assume that they're on the latest and greatest build, but that's not always the case. And so I could file this bug, and that would go back to the developer, and when they open it up, they would hopefully have everything that they needed, which could include event logs and IntelliTrace files and anything that might be relevant to help them quickly fix this issue. Now, I didn't find a bug, so I'll just cancel out of this. And at this point, I could end this iteration and move to the next iteration, which is then going to ask me to validate using the next value in that list of test parameters. But what I'd like to do now is actually cancel out of this test case and show you another approach, which is exploratory testing. Now, with exploratory testing, as I mentioned earlier, you don't start with a test case in mind. Instead, you just start testing the application like you would normally do as a software tester who isn't using test cases. And then if you find bugs, you can file them using the same process. The really nice thing about this is that Microsoft Test Manager is still keeping track of everything you were doing in the background, so that if you do find a bug, we can still include those video recordings or even audio annotations, IntelliTrace files, event logs, and so on. And so if I click on Do Exploratory Testing and then click on Explore, this is going to open up the Microsoft Test Runner in an exploratory mode, so I don't have a list of test steps in front of me. I can just start testing the application and taking notes as I go. And so, for example, if I open up my Fabricam intranet portal, one of the things that I might want to do next is just start clicking around the application and see if I can find any bugs throughout this application. So I might click on this record, and everything kind of looks okay to me right now. Once this loads, I might go back to the dashboard, and I'm just clicking around looking for anything that looks out of place. Now, keep in mind, I might be doing this for 45 minutes or more until I find an actual bug. And that's okay, because the bugs that we file are adequately scoped to the actual information that's relevant. So if I click on Delete, for example, and if I scroll down, you'll notice that we actually have a problem because we're missing some of the values. So what I'll do is grab a screenshot here, and then that's part of my bug record. I can go ahead and create a bug from here. And notice that we have a list of all the steps that I performed as part of that exploratory testing session. So this might overwhelm a developer if I just filed, 45 minutes worth of test actions. But instead, what I can do is click on Change Steps. I can scope that to what I think is the most relevant steps that were part of finding that bug. And now this includes a very nicely scoped bug that I can file back to the developer. So this is a bug with displaying customer records. Now, this is great. I created the bug. It automatically included a lot of rich attachments for me, so I trust that this is going to get fixed by the developer. But the other thing that I need to be on the lookout for is making sure that if something regresses in the functionality later on, meaning a future change impacts this particular piece of functionality, I really want to make sure that we test that using a formal testing approach like I showed you earlier. And so by using the exploratory testing approach, you can actually start to build out those formal test cases based on those actions you just performed. And so now I'm going to save this bug, but I'm also going to create a test case. And when I do so, you'll notice that it creates a list of test steps, which automatically link back to what I performed in the application. So I might go here and do some formatting, whatever it is that I need to do to communicate to the tester exactly how they validate this functionality. So make sure the values are correct. And then I'll give a title. So confirm values on delete page are accurate. And now when I save this, it now puts me right back into the exploratory testing session, so I can be productive again. I might find 10 or 20 more bugs before I'm done with this particular exploratory session. Once I'm finished, I can end testing. It's going to show me a summary that displays everything that I did as part of that exploratory testing session. That's really nice for being able to go back and understand the value of exploratory testing for your particular application. And then when I go back to the Plan tab, you'll notice that we have this new test case now, which is something that we can use in a formal test case session moving forward. And so that's just a really nice approach that allows you to use the best of both formal test case management and exploratory testing so that you can use everything from within one tool and still capture those rich, actionable bugs for your developers to make sure that when they get the issues that are coming from the manual test team, they have everything they need at their fingertips to quickly diagnose and fix those issues.